Hello, Year 6. Today, for our English session, we're focusing on the skills we need to persuade others again, as we did yesterday. To begin with, we're going to think about emotive techniques. So, this is an additional skill which we can add to our rhetorical questions, and the emotive language that we use can make people agree with us. Okay, so if you have a look at this dog, it looks like it's an unhappy dog. I'd like you to just write some words down that might describe the dog in such a way that make you or another viewer of this picture feel sympathy for the dog and maybe even make you angry about how it's being treated. So if you pause the video and think about those now. Okay, so words might invoke pity or sympathy, such as poor boy. Okay, they might make you angry, such as words such as awful, awful. Also, they might, such as our modal verbs, invoke hope and aspiration. So we might win, we might achieve something. But their job is basically to make us feel something. Okay, so that we're sure on really basics of writing, we just need to think about whether we understand what a noun, a verb, an adverb, and an adjective are. So first of all, what I'd like you to do is have a look at this piece of writing, and this will help you understand. So if we add adjectives when we're describing a noun or adverbs to describe a verb, that's a very effective way of being emotive in our writing. So these tend to be the key language points, adjectives and adverbs. So simplistically, the dog had been left by its owners. That's really simple. So what I'd like you to do is add an adjective for the dog, add an adjective for the owners, and add an adverb for the choice to leave the dog. Okay, and then rewrite the sentence. Rather than the dog had been left by its owners, could you write a sentence now which includes 2 additional adjectives and an additional adverb? Pause the video while you do that, please. Okay, year 6, so you should have come up with something. Yours might be different to this, it might be more impressive, this might be more tear-jerking, this might be more frustrating than this. So the innocent dogs are really making it clear that the dog had done nothing wrong. The innocent dog had been left cruelly by its owners, its neglectful owners. So they're not caring for it, they don't care about the dog. Okay, now if you think of that sentence, you might have thought of some yourselves that are better than innocent and neglectful or different, and you may also have thought of alternative adverbs to cruelly. Okay, so well done if you have. If not, could you have a think of some now? Maybe if you've got access to a thesaurus or just a thesaurus function on a phone, could you find some synonyms for those? In addition to adverbs and adjectives, emotive language can also be centered on nouns or verbs which will influence the reader. So rather than here saying the dog had been left by its owners, where the dog is the noun and left is the verb, we might change that. We may change this to puppy, because puppies are younger, they're more vulnerable, they're more in need of care than maybe an older dog. And rather than being left, we could talk of abandoned. So it's more powerful. We've talked a lot about the power of speech verbs and how they can emote and they can make it clear what a speaker is thinking or feeling. And it's the same with the action verb here. Rather than left, abandoned is just that bit more powerful. It shows that somebody just doesn't care. They stopped caring. And puppy, more vulnerable. If we think about a baby compared to a year 6 child, I mean, what we don't really mind about year 6 childs. We'll put them out in the cold. Meh. But babies, we care about them. Guys, just joking. We do care about year 6s. I miss you all. Okay. Now, what I'd like you to have a look at, you don't need to write too much for this because you're going to have a task on your worksheet later. But I'd like you to have a look at this text. So I'll read it through to you. And as we go through it, I'd like you to have a think about any words, whether they're adjectives or adverbs, as with the first examples, or nouns or verbs, as the second examples, which could really increase the pull of this piece of writing. Will you give £2 a month to help an animal? Take the example of Smitty. He's a young dog, only 6 months old. He was found tied up in the garden, waiting for his owners to return. He'd been waiting for 2 weeks. His owners had left him with no food and no water while they went on holiday. When we took him in, Smitty was too weak to stand. This kind of treatment happens to too many animals. £2 a month allows us to look after dogs like Smitty, to give them food, water and love. Will you help us to look after these creatures? As I read through that, one of the key points I noticed was there were very few adjectives. Okay, so the description of Smitty and the owners could be embellished, could be improved with a greater use of adjectives. I also felt that there were very few adverbs, and I wondered whether I could think of cruelly, I could think of carelessly, I could think of selfishly. I'd like you just to jot down a few word points that you think you could have added to that. Could you have changed the noun? Could he, rather than be a young dog, could he be that puppy? So think of some words, just write them down. You don't need to rewrite this section. Maybe just write down some words you think could have really, really pulled at the heartstrings, made somebody feel more inclined to give that money. Okay. The first element of your worksheet today has a section of emotive writing which needs to be improved. And what I'd like you to do is to edit it. So pretend you've got a green pen. If you have got a green pen, use a real green pen. And after you've edited it, have a go at rewriting it. So try and persuade us to give that money for that child. Okay, try and really improve that piece of writing. The second task that I'd like you to think about links to your work yesterday on Roald Dahl World. I'd like you to think from your knowledge of Roald Dahl World and your knowledge of the writing you just read about Smitty, and any piece of writing you can think was trying to get you to do or think something. I'd like you to think about what you know, so thinking about that blue no column here, what you know you should include in that Year 6 piece of persuasive writing. Let's have a think. Do you think you should have boring adjectives, or do you think you should have powerful emotive adjectives? What are those skills within grammar that we've been using that you could try and utilise to break up some clauses? Have a think. Now, if you've looked ahead on your sheet, you'll see you've actually got a no-show table already. So you've got the idea of those rhetorical questions from yesterday that we looked at. You've also got the emotive language we've looked at today. Think about conjunctions that you could use. The semicolons are a key skill we're trying to utilise, and our modal verbs we've looked at recently. We might include those, we should include those, we will include those. Agreement statements we'll focus on more later in the week, but I've given you an example of one. I'd like to see what you can think of for alliteration, rhyming, and those verbs that we can include. Has Mr. Spring checked his piece of work? Not very well, because you can see I've repeated rhetorical questions. So I'm sure, Hania, that you've caught me out there, and anybody else has spotted that. If you look, though, then, guys, basically for you today, the second task is to complete the show element of the no-show for our piece of persuasive writing. So can you think about examples of these skills that would show how you could do a piece of persuasive writing? It might be you look at some adverts you see. It might be you listen to some adverts you see. So if you see something on television, what language do they use? What emotive language do they use to try and get you to donate money or to buy something? Have a think. So have a go at completing that no-show table in addition to that rewritten persuasive advert asking for some money for those children. Please do it. It will make me happy. That's my attempt at persuasion. See you soon, Year 6. There's your task list. Bye-bye.